She was mad, bad, and dangerous to know. Yeah, that doesn't look right. Oh, that's better.
Oh, yeah.
Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm David Bird with Reality Reimagined. I'm an award-winning photographer and Photoshop artist that specializes in fantasy composite art. Today we're going to have episode 11 of the shop vlog where I take an image from start to art. But today's episode of the shop vlog is going to be unlike any that you've seen before. I want to discuss three major aspects to how this art was created. First, the concept itself, what it means to me, and how I built a visual dialogue to share my ideas with the creative team and provide a foundation for the team to collaborate and share their own creativity. Then we'll move into the photography aspect of this artwork, discussing the light setup, direction given, and what I learned about my camera that will forever change how I do the photography. Finally, we'll end up in the Photoshops and show you the art that I created first, discuss why it was wrong, and what I did to change it so it aligned with the original concept. You know, the thing that started this whole journey. The time codes so you can bounce around this adventure today, links to the people and the gear that made this all possible are in the description below. Now, let's get the show on the road by talking about Drew Barrymore. I have no idea where this picture came from. I don't know who took it. I don't know for what purpose. I do know that it was a little while ago because I recall seeing it before I became a professional photographer. Picture leaped off the page for me, and not for the naughty reasons that you're thinking of, but ask yourself legitimately, where did your eyes go when you looked at this picture for the first time? Did it go to her bare chest, or did it go to her face and to her eyes? Because that's where my eyes went when I saw it for the first time, and where they go every single time since. Look at the left eyebrow, how it's raised up. Look at the look of disdain in her eyes as she's looking at the subject off camera, as if to say, like, you think you can have a few moments of my time? Keep walking, pal. Look at the right hand casually in her pocket. The hard shadow behind her starts to give us an idea for the photography itself, the hair and makeup. Yes, of course, the sensuality. Look at how big the jacket is. There's a story there. The jacket's not tailored to fit her, so where did she get it? Did she take it from a lover? Did she take it from her husband? Did she take it from the boss of the corporate company, the boss that she just fired because she's the boss now? She's sitting outside the building watching him walk to his car, crying in shame, smiling and laughing the whole time. There's so much story in this image, and this is the source of inspiration that I used when I stepped into a new genre of photography that required sensuality. I had to find a unique voice in it, and this was an image that took every element that I needed and put it into place to say, this is what you find attractive. This is what you find interesting. This is what you want to create as an artist in the realm of sensuality and of glamour. So when I stepped into a new photography style of gelled lighting, specifically gelled glamour photography, this is the first shoot that I did for gelled lighting. And I used that picture of Drew Barrymore as the inspiration. I communicated it to the model, to the hair and makeup team, and went through that journey. As I continued to travel in the gel photography realm, I kept calling back to that picture, wanting to find story in the eyes. Suits, leather jackets, didn't matter. There needed to be an element of sensuality that, yes, is right in your face, but also look at those eyes. Look at the parting of her lips, and there's 5 different stories there. I want to know what she's about to say. This picture, this is my picture, by the way. The other 2 were mine as well, gel photos. This picture, I so desperately want to know what else is going on. Where did she come from? Where is she going? And can I have just a few moments of her time? So I wanted to do this concept again, but I didn't want to do it with gel photography. I wanted to go back to dramatic portrait lighting. And I wanted to find imagery that would help to communicate all the different aspects and bring the creative team on board. So I went to my friend Google on the information superhighway and I typed in powerful woman in suit. And this was the first image that I found. Now I love Charlize Theron. I think she's a fantastic actor. I love this picture. I think it's wonderful, but it wasn't hitting the feeling that I saw in that original picture with Drew Barrymore. Now, my first thought was, well, this is not a black and white photo. That one of Drew Barrymore was, so maybe that's the problem. But I'm like, no. There's story in her eyes, of course, right here. I see this. This is a spec image, by the way, from the information superhighway, and all the images we're about to see from here on out are spec images. They're not mine. There's story there, but it's not the right story. The suit, yeah, it's not fitting. So I changed some of the keywords, found this image. I'm like, well, it's starting to fit now. I like the suit. It's still not a black and white photo, but look at her expression. Look at her hair. It's not aligning. It's not working. So I sent all the images that I had to my wonderful friend Danielle. You've seen her in previous videos on the channel. If you'd like to see more of Danielle's amazing artwork, look at that description below. And said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this concept in dramatic portrait lighting. What do you think? And she said, yes, let's do it. It's a concept she's always wanted to do. She was on board. She started bringing her unique creativity to this shoot, using words like fashion. Not only fashion in the clothing mindset of things we can add to the scene, but some of those shapes and expressions and things we typically see in the realm of fashion. So as I continued to refine the key words, putting together these spec images to create the visual dialogue, found this image. I'm like, okay, well, this certainly fits that overall shape of fashion, what we would think of fashion photography. I wasn't sold on the Star Trek 60s go-go boots, but the hair, the shape, the big earrings, the sensualities there, the expression, these are starting to get into some of the realm that I want to explore of this photo shoot that I'm putting this all together for. On the journey of finding these images, I found this picture, which instantaneously reminded me, oh yeah, lighting patterns. I know that I don't want to do gel photography, but lighting patterns, that could play an integral part of this entire storytelling event. So I put together 3 different lighting patterns that I wanted to use during the entire photo session because I went on the journey of creating that visual dialogue. This was the image that ultimately I landed on to say, okay, this is going to be the foundation of how I prepare imagery to start communicating with the hair and makeup artist. What am I looking for? I love the sense of shape of the gelled, pulled hair, the wet look to the hair. It's aerodynamic, as if this woman's power is so vast that there's no barrier that will stop her. She can fly through anything. But then I wanted to start bringing in a few different levels because this shape through the entire session just didn't feel right. And again, that original image of Drew Barrymore, it wasn't this shape. As I was looking for levels, I liked the idea of a telltale curl that comes down. Ultimately, I found this image and went, this is the happy compromise. I get the aerodynamic shape, I get the levels I'm looking for, this will work. Then I moved into makeup, and I was convinced that the strongest point of color that I wanted to see was the lip color itself, nothing else. Let the eyes and everything else be neutral. It would be lip color, and then the iris of the eye would be the secondary color we see in the scene. But then I thought, no, I need more structure to the eye, because there was structure in the original image of Drew Barrymore. But I didn't like the conflict of color that I saw. I wanted something different. So we needed structure to the eye, but not color. So I found this and went, that'll work. Send all of these images off to the hair and makeup artist. She came back with a shape. She knew what I wanted for the hair. We were off to the races, 2 hours of styling. We took our first photos. These are the first 3 images that I created from the shoot. On set, as I always do, I have a background in theater. I worked as an actor and as a director for a long time. I gave Danielle a scene, a story, and tried to help that character come to life. And the quote that I gave her is a quote that I heard a long time ago and said, "You are mad, bad, and dangerous to know." Let's talk about the gear, the lighting, and the things that will change my photography forever. First, the camera that I'm using is a Canon EOS R, and I was using the Canon RF 24-70mm lens. There are 2 lights in this scene. Both of them are Godox AD600 strobes. The light that you can see on camera left, this is using a 12 by 55-inch Stripbox from Strobe Pro with the grid on the inside. The light that you cannot see that is off camera right is raised above the model and tilted down. That's using a very large parabolic umbrella with the white diffusion material on the outside. Let's talk about the settings for the camera. I'm on f8, a shutter speed of 1/160th of a second, and ISO 100. And that is the significant change that will change my photography forever. Now, the settings that I've always preferred to use in the past was f11, a shutter speed of 1/160th, but an ISO setting of 400. The reason being, it worked for me in the past, and I'm convinced the reason why is because of the lower quality of sensor that I was using in those older cameras from Canon. When I moved to the Godox system of lighting, which is a battery-powered system of lighting, I always enjoyed ISO 400 because I could set my lights and have the meter at f11. The power on the lights could be set to like 1/116th power or 1/32nd power. If you use any other lighting system in the world besides ProPhoto, you should understand those ratios. But when I metered these lights to be at ISO 100, I could get up to f8, but I had to take the lights to a power setting of 1/4 power or 1/8 power. So the batteries are going to drain a lot faster. I was not convinced this was a good idea. I liked preserving the battery power by being at ISO 400, but the reason I explored it during this shoot is because I've noticed over the past couple of years using my Canon that all of the quote-unquote detail looks amazing. It's a 30 megapixel sensor. It's wonderful, but as I continue to zoom in to find details in the eye or into props or into clothing, the detail patterns felt just a little too much like noise. Now, there's always going to be noise in images, and the further you take the ISO, the more noise there will be. But in the past, when I would work with ISO 100 to 400 with older cameras, I didn't see that significant of a difference as far as the noise is concerned. And as I would share on this channel my settings and various videos of what I would do, I would get a few people that would drive by and be like, "Ew, why are you using ISO 400? ISO 100 is so amazing, it's so much better, and you're a loser for using 400. Noise, loser, 400, bleh." So I decided that I would explore 100 during this shoot just to see how the noise was being handled with a modern camera like the Canon EOS R. Being honest, I don't think about changing everything to my work and my flow. And that is something that I consistently preach and talk about in education, that you should consistently keep pushing your horizons, right? Well, shame on me that I haven't until now. Because when I looked at the image and zoomed into her eye at ISO 100, there is no noise. It's a beautiful picture. The details are lovely. All of you squawking boxes in the comments that said, "Oh, loser," you were right. I'm a loser. You win. So from now on, I will always photograph at ISO 100. I've shot at ISO 100 in the past when I'm shooting outside in natural light and the sun is super bright in Arizona. But inside the studio, under lighting controlled environments, I will photograph at ISO 100, which means to be able to get to f11, I'm going to have to blast the power of those lights, which is going to drain the batteries. So I'm trying to get myself comfortable to be at an aperture of f8 instead of f11. I've always liked f11. There's just more of a sense of drama between the highlights and the shadows in the scene, and just fit those needs. Now, because of that issue with f8 and me doing it on the fly for the first time with this shoot, as you can see with this image in Adobe Camera Raw, the first things that I went to was to pull the shadows out. Because if I return this, it's at plus 76 right now. If I return it to 0, those shadows are just a little too intense. Now, I prefer this dramatic lighting pattern, where I set the lights, again, one off camera left, one off camera right. The one off camera right is raised above the model and tilted down. I like how we have the kicker light here on this side. We have some nice shadow through here and bright light. So we have a place to connect with her eyes and let the highlights and shadows travel to help augment that story. But even with all of these numbers zeroed back out, this was just too dark for me. So ideally, power of the light needs to come up just a little bit more. Also, to be fair to myself, the battery died inside of my light meter. So I had to do this the old-fashioned way, the wrong way, which is looking in the back of the LCD of the camera and going, yeah, it looks okay. I'll just fix it in Photoshop. So when I got it to Photoshop, I found out, yeah, there's a lot that I need to fix. So I have a new battery for the light meter. Things will be much more pleasant on set. The last thing I want to talk about with this aspect of the shoot before we move into the Photoshop work is the story that I communicated to Danielle. Mad, bad, and dangerous to know is a quote from Lord Byron, but it set a tone. She loved the way she looked in the hair and makeup. When she put on the suit, that character started to kind of come over her just a little bit. And this is something that I'm akin to seeing working all of those years and all my time in the world of theater. That character is something that I implore you to urge. Think about emotions. Write down 5 key emotions of what you want to see from your subject from the shoot. And you'll be surprised how often that never happens. Because the concept is created, the visual dialogue is put together, hair and makeup, everybody's brought together, the lights are turned on, and then be honest with yourself. As a photographer, how often do you turn to the model and say, okay, you just do your thing and I'm going to photograph? Because this guy on YouTube said it, put a light over here, put a light over there, set these settings, and just be sexy. Wear the suit. Be Drew Barrymore. Give them emotions. Emotions of what you want to see so that when you look at your images on the computer, it will leap off the page. You can't wait to edit it, get it out to the social medias, sell it to the client, put it on a billboard, and watch art take place. Now, I did that in the Photoshops, and I made a horrible mistake by not listening to the advice that I just gave you. So let's talk about that. See, the problem is I want a new canvas backdrop for my studio. I photograph all the time on gray seamless paper, and I spend a lot of time photoshopping in textures and so forth because I have the paper, I have the freedom to do whatever I want in the Photoshops, but I'm kind of like getting to a place where I want to be a normal photographer again. Like, I want to have a nice, expensive, beautiful, well-crafted canvas backdrop and hang it in the studio and then put the lights around it and do normal photography. Photograph, have a wonderful time, thank you, put it into the computer, look at it and say, that one, I'll edit that one. And then it's all finished because I just did a retouch. I didn't have to change the background and put planets and stars and lightsabers. And wouldn't it be cool if she was holding a lightsaber in front of like the Death Star? Anyway, so this is why I landed on this image and this background specifically in the Photoshops, because this is a canvas texture that I purchased from Adobe stock, and it happens to have my second favorite color. My favorite color is blue, and then purple's right behind it. So I mixed a little bit of blue into it, a little bit of magentas, and put it all together, and I was like, canvas, purple, it's pretty. And I did 3 images, which you've already seen at the top of the video. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's good and that's great. And then I sat on it for a few days after I shared it to social media. And of course, on social media, everyone was like, and then I looked at these and went, they're not hitting that mood. They're not hitting that story. This beautiful purple canvas background is not mad, bad, and dangerous to know. So I went back and created a different background. Scratches, grunge, texture, mad, bad, and dangerous to know. And then I took it a few steps further and went, this is definitely mad, bad, and dangerous to know. So the point being here, and the lesson I want you to take away, is that when we get into the Photoshops, just like Ian Malcolm said in Jurassic Park, just because you can, doesn't mean you should. Just because I can buy a new canvas backdrop for my studio doesn't mean that I need to be putting canvas in behind every subject that I edit in the Photoshops. If the background doesn't fit the story, if the textures, if the color palette do not fit the story, if the hair and makeup doesn't fit the story, if the clothing doesn't fit the story, if the direction on set doesn't fit the story, if you don't even know what the story is, you're never going to tie it all together and bring your imagination to life. So I went back through the entire series, fixed it, and now I'm very satisfied with this shoot. I'm very satisfied with this series, except for one tiny problem. And it's my new problem, and I need your help with it. And I'm not kidding, I'm not being facetious. I need your help solving this problem because I literally cannot make up my mind, and here's the problem. I tend to do a lot of color grading, a lot of finishing work to an image beyond just the retouch or frequency separation, dodging and burning and enhancing the eyes. And I have a few different styles or looks, if you will, that I put on top of the image that I'm very pleased with. But for some reason, I now feel the need to turn everything in my career upside down on its head and go back to simple things like retouching and then just being done with the picture. No other styles and looks and fancy little algorithms holding hands in the Photoshops, just saying it's done. Maybe a little bit of a vignette, a little touch of clarity, and we're finished. So here are 3 different looks. Look number 1, I call this one, I did everything in the Photoshops. Look number 2, I call this one, I did nothing in the Photoshops. And look number 3, I call this one the compromise. So I need your help to decide which of these 3 looks fits this story, this narrative, this concept, so I can be finished and moved on to something else by tomorrow. That would be lovely. And with that, let's finish up this adventure today with some final thoughts. The takeaway from today's episode is very simple. I have heard from so many folks that say, I don't know where to begin. I have ideas and inspirations, things that I want to accomplish, but when I begin that journey, it quickly turns into a tumble down the hill, and at the end, there's some pictures that were taken, and that's about it. When lightning strikes, and your creativity, your imagination is sparked by it, grab onto one tiny piece. You don't have to grab onto the entire concept, the entire bolt of lightning, and hold onto it and hug it like it's your own. Grab one little piece. That picture of Drew Barrymore was not only that one little piece for this shoot with Danielle, but as I've shown you, so many other shoots, so many other stories and adventures that I've went on in my career. Hold on to that one piece, let it be an inspiration, and then begin a systemic approach to the creativity. Problem solve. What do you see in that one inspirational image? What can you derive of the story, the look, the hair, the makeup, the color palette, the lighting pattern? Put it all together systemically. Go on the journey. You are in control of your own imagination. If you like the content of what you found in today's video, then please give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel, because new content debuts each week in photography and Photoshop education. And when you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of that new content when you return to the YouTubes. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, I'll see you out there in the world of Photoshop.